And the Steelers, according to 93.7 The Fans, Andrew Filipponi and Chris Muller were supposed to be making a big announcement today involving Aaron Rodgers. We got about 6 more hours until the day is over, so there's still hope. But I'm at the same time not going to be getting my hopes up because we've been through how many days of this Aaron Rodgers saga so far, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. Now, Schefter did give some insight today on his thoughts and his just best guess on when he thinks this deadline is going to be. And it feels like the deadline just keeps extending out longer and longer from all these reporters and insiders trying to give their best guess and speculation on the situation. Because I swear, just a couple weeks ago, Schefter was saying, oh, it's got to be before the draft. Not only Schefter, a lot of people. It's going to be before the draft. That's what's going to happen. A couple days before. And then the draft happens. It'll be before the schedule release. Now, the schedule release is about to happen tomorrow. We're already in rookie minicamp. There's some other phases of the offseason coming up late May. And I think the most recent deadline we've been hearing, and Schefter was one of them saying this, is May 27th. And you can see that right up here on the screen. Art Rooney II said during the draft that the Pittsburgh Steelers could get word soon from Aaron Rodgers and more or less stated his expectation that he would show up for some offseason program if his plan is to sign with the team. May 27th is the first date to circle on the calendar with the Pittsburgh Steelers voluntary OTA set to begin. But ESPN insider Adam Schefter thinks the wait will drag on a little longer. So it was initially, at least, whenever we were talking about May, again, the schedule release, kind of one of those soft deadlines, and maybe May 27th as another one because it's voluntary OTAs. If you're going to be the quarterback for the Steelers, wouldn't be a bad idea to be a part of those OTAs, even though they're voluntary. Get to know your team, build some rapport. But what about June 10th? Because that's the next checkpoint potentially here if May 27th doesn't happen or the decision isn't made before May 27th at least. Says, I think the Steelers mandatory minicamp is next month. Forget the exact date. Roughly June 10th. Schefter said via Unsportsmanlike this morning, the, I believe, radio show on ESPN. I would think that we would get a decision from Aaron Rodgers shortly before then about whether or not he should play. To me, you can't miss that mandatory minicamp where you start gearing up. I guess you can, but it's not ideal. So there you go. Just that last sentence says it all. To me, you can't miss that mandatory minicamp where you start gearing up. I guess you can, but it's not ideal. Right. Rodgers not making his decision, we're about 2 months from free agency starting is not ideal either. So we're just in a all around overall not ideal situation with our quarterback spot. At the same time, I'm comfortable with it. I really am. It's not ideal, but I'm good with it. I actually am fine with how the Steelers approached not only quarterback, but also this whole roster this offseason. I think they've done a good job of trying to set themselves up for some pretty good success in 2025. Obviously, getting Rodgers in here will help that even more, but also setting ourselves up really nicely for the future, 2026 and onward. Because we needed change. We needed to do something different from what we had going last year. Because after we had that big turnover of Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky being our quarterbacks, going from that to Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and making all the upgrades we thought we did on defense and just the new coaches, we had a bunch of turnover from that 10-7 season in 2023 and the first-round playoff exit against the Bills. A lot of turnover. And you're thinking to yourself, man, the defense in 2024 should only be better, healthier. We signed Patrick Queen. We made all these additions, had a nice draft. Quarterback with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Can't really get much worse than what we dealt with Kenny, Mitch, and Mason. Now, Mason was balling out. Don't get it twisted. Mason was balling out. But just that whole calamity of a quarterback situation, right? Kenny in and out of the lineup, inconsistent play, even though he was having those game-winning drives. Mr. Trubisky was god-awful, and then we had Mason at the end to save the season. You're thinking, okay, if Russ can come in here and get back to some form of old Russ, there's no reason why we shouldn't have a 2 or 3 win upgrade and be legit contenders for the AFC North and make a nice playoff push. Now he gets hurt. Fields comes in. Now Fields played admirably, first 6 weeks, 4-2, and then Russ comes in. It was looking pretty solid, 10-3 start, but then we know how it finished, and it was 10-7 again. And you're just like, man, with how Russ ended the season, looking more and more limited, the offense getting worse and worse. We're putting together streaks worse than anything we've seen, even with Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett. I think it was 5 games in a row where we didn't put up at least 17 points. That wasn't even accomplished with Mitch, Kenny, Mason, Canada, any whatever combo that happened prior and seasons prior before Russ and Fields being here. Like, we never even accomplished that. So I said to myself, a lot of us looked at the Steelers situation and said, man, we gotta do something. We gotta change something. And obviously we weren't firing Tomlin, so there needed to be a personnel overhaul, whole new identity, whole new just culture, whatever it was. And we've done that this offseason. We absolutely have gone to that degree. Traded Pickens, brought in DK Metcalf, some nice additions on defense, killed it in the draft, and now we wait for the quarterback. But again, I like how we handled it. I really do. We didn't go out of our way for Fields. We know we're going to be getting a compensatory pick for him. Same thing with Russ. He signs with the Giants. If he hits his incentives, hits his playing time bonuses, all that stuff, we could get, I think it's a 3rd-round pick. Initially, right now, it's a 5th-round pick, but it could go up to a 3rd-round pick. Dan Moore signs with the Titans. We get a 3rd-round compensatory pick there. Although, wait, I think I was wrong. Is Fields going to be a 4th-round pick? I think we're it's either he's a 3rd or a 4th. I can't remember. But I think the Steelers and Omar Khan, Tomlin, I think they played this offseason pretty shrewdly. Not going to lie. Because I think there's a pretty decent chance Mason Rudolph, if he ends up being the starter, or an Aaron Rodgers coming in here, one of those 2 guys end up playing better than Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, or even we had supposed interest in Sam Darnold. He signs with Seattle. But I think those 2 guys, Rudolph or Rodgers, could play better tthan any of those other quarterbacks that we were interested in this offseason. And we're getting them for a much less or a much lesser rate. Yeah, we don't have to pay out any multi-year deals. Rodgers said he'd come here for $10 million. We already got Mason under contract for $4 million. But they got a chance to be better than anyone else that we were considering. And then we got 2026 with all of our draft picks, the better quarterback class ahead of us. So you wait and see what 2025 looks like, and then you're all in for something in 2026. Not saying we're not all in right now. I know the Pickens trade was weird, but I feel like that's going to be addition through subtraction. All right, let's get to the rest of these topics for today's show. Real quick, I guess the big announcement, I went on a little bit of a spiel there after the Aaron Rodgers news about the Steelers offseason and how we've handled it. But maybe the big announcement that Moeller and Filipponi was talking about was just that we were going to be playing in Ireland, because that is news that we got today. We didn't hear from Aaron Rodgers just yet. Again, we still got 6 hours, less than 6 hours now before the clock strikes midnight, and we are on to Wednesday, May 14th, and the whole schedule will be released. But so far, we at least know the Steelers are playing week 4 in Ireland against the Vikings. That was a team not being thrown in consideration. I was hearing a lot of Bills and I was hearing a lot of Packers. not the Vikings. And the timeline adds up. It's going to be Sunday, September 28th. I did say whenever we first heard that Steelers were going to be playing in Ireland, they were going to be doing an international game this year, that it was going to fall either the last week in September or it was going to go until I think like the first week in November. But I was like thinking with Ireland's weather and stuff that most likely it was either going to be last week, September, like the first 2 weeks in October. So we got September 28th, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is, I looked this up, it's going to be 2:30 over in Ireland. It's going to be dope, man. I hope to make it out there. I would love to make the trip and go to this game. Could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, really. Because I'm sure Steelers are going to be playing more international games. But is it a guarantee it's going to be in Dublin? It's going to be in Ireland again? Who's to say? But, I mean, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it. If I don't go, I'm sure it'll be cool, even watching from it on TV. But I would really like to go. I know a lot of Steeler Nation is going to be going to this game. We're going to be packing the house. It's probably going to be, I feel like Vikings fans are low-key going to travel for this game too. I think it'll be like 70-30 Steelers. It's going to be a takeover. I don't think it'll be this, 90 to 10 ratio or 95 to 5% ratio. But yeah, I think it'll still be significantly more Steeler fans than Vikings fans. But maybe this was the news that Mueller and Filipponi were talking about, because this is what we got. Looking forward to it. And we'll get the full schedule tomorrow. There were no other leaks. I was looking if there were any other leaks for like a Sunday night game or a Monday night game. Haven't seen anything just yet. One more little bit of information here, because I wanted to get to the defensive stat projections that Mike Clay did through his like database or his I don't even know what you'd want to call it, his simulator that he had. He did it for all 32 teams. We went over the offensive stat projections. I think it was last week, and then the Pickens trade happened, so the content had to shift because of that. So I wanted to go over the defensive stat projections that he has at the end. So before we do that, real quick, Trey Sermon is now a Pittsburgh Steeler. We signed him to a 1-year deal. I saw the rookie minicamp or the tryout thing, the whole roster, all the people that we had in there and players we had in there, and there were a lot of names I didn't recognize. And then I saw Trey Sermon's name. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Is this a different Trey Sermon, or how did he somehow get into this like rookie tryout offseason thing here? But no, it was actually Trey Sermon, the guy that's been in the league for 4 years, that was drafted by the 49ers. That was a pretty dope Ohio State running back. And what's crazy about this, or let's not say crazy, but curious about us signing him, is he was in the same draft class as Najee Harris. And he was one of the guys that we were considering and taking in that draft. I'm sure if Najee wasn't there for us in the first round and we had to skip on running back, which would have been hindsight 2020, the smart decision, we should have taken Creed Humphrey. But anyway, I digress. If Najee wasn't available for us, we passed on him. Trey Sermon was a guy that we may have been looking at in like the third round or something, one of those middle rounds, because we were going to get a running back. The question was whether or not it was smart for us to draft one in the first round, but we needed to get a guy because we let James Conner walk in free agency. He went to the Cardinals, and all we had on our roster, I think, was like Benny Snow and McFarland. Man, was there another running back? I can't even remember. But Trey Sermon's now a Pittsburgh Steeler because there was interest there. I remember, I think we did some meetings with them. There was reports and rumors saying the Steelers really like Trey Sermon. He's a guy to watch out for the Steelers in the mid rounds if they don't go with a running back early. But I'll be honest with you, this is nothing to get too excited about. He's a name. He is. That's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit for today's show. But he hasn't done much in the league. Being with the 49ers, he was with the Colts over the past couple seasons. I mean, you look at the stats right there. only 258 yards and 2 touchdowns over 2 seasons. And with the 49ers and having Kyle Shanahan as his play caller, as his head coach, only 11 total games. I'm sorry. You know what? He spent a season in Philly, too. His first year was with the Niners. First year's with the Niners, only 9 games with the Niners, 167 yards, 1 touchdown. Then he goes to the Eagles and only played 2 games there. So in 11 total games between the Niners and the Eagles in his first 2 seasons, it's only like, oh, man, what is that? I can't even do the math. 167 plus 19. It's not much. It's, what, 180-something, 186 yards and 1 touchdown, and then you combine it with what he just did with the Colts. That's not much production. 505 yards and 3 touchdowns in 4 years. You know, if you were going to be what a lot of people expected you to be in the pros, I think you would have seen better glimpses up to this point, right? Because people were high on Trey Sermon. I was. I thought he would have been a nice pick for the Steelers in the mid-rounds of that draft. But now he's going into the rest of this offseason as what? He's going to be probably the 5th or 6th running back on our depth chart. I think we have like 8 or 9 running backs on the roster right now. Obviously, not all of them are making the team. We're only going to keep about 3 or 4. But we got Jaylen Warren. We got Caleb Johnson. We got Kenneth Gainwell. Cordarrelle Patterson's still here. And then Trey Sermon. Like, that's the competition right there. If we keep 4 running backs, which I think is very unlikely with the additional fullback we might be keeping on the roster, think of the tight ends we got with Darnell Washington, Donald Parham, Connor Hayward competing for a spot. You know, Arthur Smith likes to have a bunch of tight ends on the team. I just don't see us keeping 4 running backs in a serious way. But if we do, that's Trey Sermon's way of making the squad, beating out a Cordarrelle Patterson. We made a couple other signings too, but not really noteworthy. Max Hurlman, another running back. Like I said, we got a bunch of running backs going into the rest of OTAs here in training camp. Max Hurlman, he played 4 years at Colgate, spent his 5th year at Notre Dame, but didn't even really play running back like that. Was just more of a special teams guy. So maybe that's Max's best chance of making the team, just special teams, because there's no way he's making it as a running back. Like, maybe that's his position by title, but he's going to have to do more than that to really carve out a role here. And then we also signed offensive tackle Gareth Warren from small school Lindenwood. He's big, 6'6", 330, athletic. So who knows? Maybe upside down the line, maybe he makes the roster as a depth piece, because we don't have the best depth on the O-line. Like, there's guys I think that are already slotted to be making the team as probably like our 6th or 7th offensive line. But as that 8th or 9th guy, Warren may have a chance. I mean, 6'6", 330. The big knock against him is just coming from a small school, the competition. So you see what he does against pros in training camp and in preseason, and if it's good enough to make the roster, good for him, man. Can't teach the size. You can't teach the size and the athleticism like that, so I'm not against taking a flyer on a dude like that. Now let's get to these defensive stat projections, because the offensive ones were kind of interesting, but now they're outdated with because Pickens was a part of it. Once we traded Pickens, I feel like those numbers and projections were going to have to slip a little bit. Let me pull them up real quick, actually. Yeah, right here. They had Pickens getting 989 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's just going to have to go to somewhere else. That's going to have to go to Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson. I mean, those Roman Wilson receiving yards and numbers, those were low to begin with. I felt like that was disrespectful, actually. Only 3 receptions, 36 yards for Roman Wilson. My God. So, yeah, divvy up those 989 yards and 6 touchdowns to Austin, Robert Woods, and Roman Wilson. We still need to bring in another guy, though. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But yeah, already the offensive stat projections are a little out of date. I feel like Rodgers' stats are going to be better. Again, once he signs here, I would think close to 4,000 yards. Now, this was only in 15 games. Close to 4,000. I could see him 30 touchdowns, less than 10 picks. Higher numbers for Caleb Johnson, too. 918 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. I think he's getting 1,200. But that's that for offense. I'm not going to go over this again. We already did last week. So let's go to defense. Feels a little disrespectful. There are some numbers here that are status quo, like Patrick Queen, 129 tackles, 2 sacks, a pick. That sounds solid. Joey Porter Jr., a pick and a half. Yeah, that's about right. I hope he starts bumping up his pick numbers, but I think he only had 1 his rookie year. Did he have 2 last year? That's about right. Darius Slay, 2.5. I could see him getting 3 or 4. Minkah Fitzpatrick, 90-something tackles, 1.3 picks. Unfortunately, that's probably accurate. He's been getting tackles. He's had to be a safety valve for our defense. And then his pick numbers have been down. The splash plays have been down over the last couple of years. 2021, 2022, I mean, dude was getting 5-6 picks a year. We were calling it Minkah Ball. The Minkah effect, right? Whenever he first came here in 2019, defense was night and day different. So his first 3 or 4 seasons with the Steelers, we were seeing splash plays game in and game out. And these last couple years, I still think Minkah is arguably the best safety in the league, but we just haven't seen the Minkah Fitzpatrick of old. So hopefully we get that this year, and these stat projections are a little bit off. Only 1.3 picks. 3 or 4 would be nice. Maybe a pick 6 thrown in there. Sean Elliott, they got him getting more tackles than Minkah Fitzpatrick. I see that. He plays more of that role. He'll jump up in the box a little bit more. He's more of our hitting safety between the two. But he's good in coverage. I mean, Deshaun Elliott's been one of the best signings we've had in a minute. Huge value with that pickup. Only signing him, I think, for $3 million a year, too. Crazy. Juan Thornhill playing that third safety role, getting a decent portion of snaps. I think the safety delegation here of snaps is pretty accurate. I like that. I see it playing out that way. And then Miles Killebrew, obviously, he's a special teams guy. But let's go to defensive line then. And here's what I'm talking about in terms of disrespect a little bit when we're talking the front 7, defensive line, and edge rushers. Cam Hayward, they have him starting to show his age. 4.7 sacks, which would actually still be good for an interior defensive lineman. 72 tackles, 4.7 sacks. That's still pretty damn good. It's just that Cam Hayward, outside of the year he was injured in 2023, has been putting up top 3 or 4 interior defensive lineman type of seasons over the past 5 or 6 years. And this is after he's turned 30. You would have expected his play to take a little bit of a downtick, but he's only been getting better. He's been only aging like fine wine. And last year was another example of that. Coming off of the injured season in 2023, you're thinking to yourself, man, he wants this extension. He's looking for this 3-year contract, wants to play 3 more years, and he wants to get paid properly. I don't know if the Steelers can afford it. I don't know if this is the wisest business decision for the Steelers to be paying Cam Hayward top 5 defensive tackle type of money. And ultimately, they didn't. Cam and Steelers came to agreement, bumped up his pay a little bit. But he bought out. He would have been deserving of getting $25, $26 million last year. 8 sacks. I mean, he looked like the Cam Hayward of old. Now he's going to be another year older, and it wouldn't be unreasonable for him to come a little bit more back down to earth and get a 5-sack season, especially with us bringing in Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon's going to be getting some snaps. And that'll be good for us, too. If you're talking about the Steelers' long-term plans for next season and focusing on the end stretch and the playoffs, that'll be good for Cam. We don't have to be playing him 100% of the snaps or a ton of the snaps in like the first half of the season. Maybe we do if Derek Harmon isn't living up. But you get my point. Like, I just think, maybe some less snaps for Cam Hayward, getting another year older, and just natural digression. You could get some less stats and less production. It's wouldn't be the end of the world. But you got Keanu Benton getting 2.3 sacks, Derek Harmon 2.4. You see there's a rotation here, though. I think that's my main takeaway of that defensive line projection is just the snap counts and how you got Cam getting a good portion, but Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon not too far off either. Our free agent signing of Daniel Quale getting some reps in there too. Now we got Isaiah Loudermilk making the team here, or I don't at least. Mike Clay and his projections have Isaiah Loudermilk making the team, and Dean Lowry. I don't know. We also got Y.A. Black. We got Logan Lee. There's going to be other guys that are in contention. DeMarvin Leal, he forgot too. Yeah, I don't know if it's really a slam dunk that Loudermilk's making the squad like that. But then with edge rushers, this is where I think the disrespect is a little bit more real. TJ Watt, 10.1 sacks. Highsmith with 9. I think that's good. That's Highsmith getting back to what we know Highsmith can be doing. Like just floating around that like double-digit sack a season type of guy. Like that's who Highsmith is. That's who we know him to be. Nick Herbig with 3 sacks. I could see him getting more reps. I mean, this is his 3rd year. I could see him getting like 5. I like how they got Jack Sawyer getting some minutes here. A sack and a half, or actually 1.3 sack. I don't know how they're coming up with these numbers. Like, why just not make it 1.5 or a clean 1, a clean 2? They got DeMarvin Leal on the edge. I'm sorry. That's fake news, though. DeMarvin Leal is a defensive lineman. So DeMarvin Leal does make the team, according to Mike Clay. TJ Watt at 10.1 sacks, though. I think that's the disrespect. Like, that would be a bummer. I think that would be TJ Watt officially showing that he's not Superman anymore. That he is human. That time is undefeated. Because up to this point, TJ Watt is pretty much the best defender in the league year in and year out. And even after last season, where he had a down year, he was still one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the DPOY conversation. And that's the unfortunate part. This is why I can't rail on this projection like too much. And I think this is probably too, just like on the offense. Maybe this is projected over 15 games instead of 17 because they're allocating for injury. But we saw TJ come back to earth. Not even come back to earth. Like outside of, I guess maybe come back to earth. Outside of TJ's rookie year, he's been on this crazy trajectory of being the best defensive player in the league, like year in and year out. One of the top 2 or 3 defenders in the league, year in and year out. Like crazy impact. So apart from his rookie year, like we have not seen the TJ Watt that we saw those last like 7 or 8 games. It was a shock to me. It was. I think it was a shock to all of us. But here's hoping that it was just a weird stretch of the season. Maybe TJ was banged up a little bit. Our defense as a whole faltered. So maybe part of that too was everyone else not playing up to snuff, and the offenses were able to pay a ton of attention to TJ, and he could get off the way that he usually does. Now, even with that being said, when TJ has faced double teams or triple teams in the past, he's still ending seasons with 14, 15 sacks, a lot of forced fumbles. Now, he did have a lot of forced fumbles last year, but it wasn't a TJ Watt type of season. It was starting off like a TJ Watt type of season, the first half of it, but the second half just wasn't it. So if these 10 sacks end up being TJ's final mark for next season in the sack category, that'll be a big disappointment. It'll be a big disappointment. I'll be bummed. It's still a good season though, but that ain't worth 40 million. I'll tell you that. I mean, that goes hand in hand as to why, like, I'm hesitant in paying TJ Watt that 40 million. Because even with TJ balling like the way that he has traditionally, and with us paying him top of the market money, that $30 million contract that set the market at the time, even with us doing that, we still haven't won a playoff game. So now with TJ going into his early 30s, coming off of a bad final stretch of last season where he didn't look like TJ Watt, why are we going to be paying him even more and expecting the same level of play as he's getting older? Why are we going to be paying him more, expecting the same level of play, if not better? Because if you're paying him 40 million, you're expecting more. You want more. So yeah, these projections I don't think are too far off. I would give TJ Watt like 13 or 14 sacks. I think that'd be a safer metric than what they got him right here. And then special teams, again, we still have Cordell Patterson on this team. Kenneth Gainwell getting some of these kick returns. Calvin Austin, that's probably about right. I would expect more yards in the punt return game from him. 29 attempts, 278 yards. That's about 10 yards per punt return. That's what he typically gets. But I'd throw a touchdown in there. He's good for a touchdown. Give him maybe 350, 400 yards, though. Chris Boswell, just being the best kicker in the league. And then we got Cameron Johnson as our punter. That's going to be low-key an interesting situation with him coming back from that brutal injury last year. Whether it's him or Corliss Waitman, we should be fine in the punting game. Corliss Waitman was awesome for us last year. Definitely an upgrade over Presley Harvin. But we did bring in Cam Johnson for a reason. We did pay him, $4 million a year for a reason. But all right, that's it for today's show. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling. Here we go, Steelers. Peace.